The scorched surface of New Horizon filled the viewport, a world once green and thriving, now a sphere of smoke and glass. The clouds glowed faintly red where the crust still burned. Admiral Leora Kane stood motionless on the bridge of the Resolute, hands clasped behind her back. The silence that hung over the command deck was heavier than any battlefield noise. "Casualty report?" she asked. Her voice was steady, cold, the voice of a woman who'd seen too many burned worlds to be surprised by another. Commander Elias Rund swallowed before answering. "Total loss, Admiral. 42 million civilians. No distress signal. Planetary network was shut down before the bombardment." Leora didn't flinch. She only said, "Send the footage to the Council." Then, after a pause, "No, send it to the public. Let them see what the Vraks have done." The order rippled through the bridge crew. No one argued. No one looked away from their stations. Outside, the remains of the colony drifted across orbit like silent confetti. Half-melted satellites, fragments of cities, frozen bodies suspended in the dark, evidence enough of the enemy's return. Leora turned toward the holographic display rising from the center of the bridge. The data stream glowed with reports: burned colonies, missing fleets, intercepted transmissions. All bore the same signature, the Vraks Dominion. A species humanity thought extinct for nearly a century. "They were supposed to be gone," Rund said under his breath. "They were supposed to remember," Leora corrected quietly. That night, in her private quarters, Leora replayed an old recording. Two voices, a man and a woman laughing, filled the air. Her parents. The video ended with the same explosion it always did, a Vraks orbital strike on Mars 2, the colony where she was born. She shut it off before the screams began. For decades, the Terran Union had buried that past. Peace, reconstruction, expansion, humanity had looked to the stars again, believing the age of war was over. But now, as entire colonies burned, the lie came undone. A chime echoed. "Admiral, you're wanted in the War Council channel," Rund said over comms. Leora straightened her uniform and entered the holographic chamber. 12 figures materialized: admirals, ministers, the President of the Union. Their expressions were grim. "Admiral Kane," the President began. "You've reviewed the reports. We have confirmed intelligence. The Vraks Dominion survived the Ashen Moon's war. They've rebuilt in the outer reaches. How many systems have they taken?" Leora asked. 4 confirmed. 2 under siege. Their fleets are coordinated. Smarter. And our response? Silence followed. It wasn't uncertainty. It was fear of the answer they all knew. Finally, the defense minister spoke. "We cannot allow another drawn-out conflict. The Council authorizes Operation Final Dawn. Command is yours, Admiral Kane. Objective: neutralize the Vraks Dominion. Permanently." Leora's eyes narrowed slightly. "Define neutralize." The President met her gaze. "Make sure they can never rebuild." There was no applause. No cheers. Just quiet acknowledgement that humanity had crossed a line it could never uncross. 2 days later, the Resolute led the Terran fleet from the Sol dockyards. 1 billion people watched from every screen as the ships departed. Titans of steel, bristling with rail cannons and plasma lances, flanked by drone formations moving like schools of metallic fish. Humanity's armada, perfected by centuries of survival. Rund approached her on the observation deck, eyes tracing the endless stream of vessels jumping into slip space. "Do you ever wonder if this is too much?" She didn't look at him. "Not enough, Commander. Not after what they did. They killed millions, yes. But extinction?" Leora turned to him, her face a calm blade. "They learned nothing from the First War. We showed mercy. They took it as weakness. This time, they'll learn what humanity truly is when cornered." Rund lowered his gaze. "And if that lesson changes us?" She paused, then walked away. "It already has." Far across the stars, in the black citadel of Vrax Prime, Archon Zyrek stood before his war council. The chamber pulsed with violet light from the planet's molten core, reflected across scales and armor. The humans have grown complacent, Xyrix declared. His voice echoed through the stone hall. Their unity is built on peace. We will remind them of fear. A lesser general bowed. Our Sunpiercer array is operational, my Archon. One discharge can erase a fleet. Xyrix's mandibles twitched in a smile. Then we will begin with their colonies. Burn their children's worlds. Let them see their fragility. But if they retaliate, they are animals, Xyrix interrupted. Short-lived, emotional, soft. They react? We plan. He didn't see the flicker of doubt in his advisor's eyes. None of them truly knew what the humans had become in their absence. Hours later, aboard the Resolute, the fleet entered its first jump corridor. Slip space engines thundered, folding reality into spiraling blue light. Leora watched as Starfield stretched and twisted, her reflection faint in the glass. She thought of the message humanity had sent at the end of the First War, a warning broadcast in every known tongue. Do not test us again. Now, the Vrax had answered that warning. And humanity was replying in kind. Admiral, said Run, stepping beside her. All ships report ready for Phase 1. Leora gave a single nod. Engage jump sequence. Target, Vrax border systems. A hum filled the air as energy rippled through the ship. Every light dimmed for an instant, then flared as space tore open before them, a luminous vortex swirling like liquid sapphire. She turned to her crew. We strike hard and fast. No quarter. No hesitation. Her gaze moved across the faces of officers, each one knowing what that order truly meant. The Vrax ended peace. Now we end them. A chorus of acknowledgments followed. Engines roared. The Resolute surged forward, followed by the fleet, thousands of ships diving into the light. Minutes stretched into eternity inside slip space. When they emerged, they found the Vrax defenses waiting, orbital platforms bristling with plasma turrets, fleets darkening the stars. Leora stood firm as alarms filled the bridge. Target all hostiles. Prioritize command vessels. Execute Formation Delta. The battle erupted instantly. Space lit up in streaks of blue and orange. Missiles swarmed like fireflies. Human railguns tore through alien hulls. Vrax plasma lances carved fiery trails across the void. Through the chaos, Leora's voice cut like a knife. All ships advance. Don't give them time to think. Within minutes, the first Vrax system fell silent. One by one, their ships disintegrated under coordinated fire. The Terran fleet moved like a living organism, adaptive, relentless, unstoppable. Run looked out at the burning wreckage. They never stood a chance. They started this, Leora replied softly. We're just finishing the First War. When the last Vrax cruiser exploded, the bridge fell quiet. Leora exhaled slowly. The war had only just begun, but already, she knew how it would end. She opened a channel to the fleet. Mark this day. Humanity doesn't fight for revenge. We fight so no one ever dares to make us do this again. Her words carried through every ship, every soldier. The camera panned across the shattered battlefield, wreckage drifting through the dark like ghosts. Far away, Xyrix watched the feed from his throne room, his expression unreadable. For the first time in centuries, he felt something unfamiliar rise in his chest. Not anger. Not pride. Fear. And deep in the void, Admiral Leora Kane whispered into the silence. Let the galaxy remember. The Terran fleet spread through the void like a steel tide, consuming every Vrax system in its path. Planet after planet fell, not through invasion, but eradication. Orbital bombardments stripped worlds to bone and ash before the enemy could regroup. No demands. No peace talks. Only silence after fire. Admiral Leora Kane stood at the heart of it all. From the command bridge of the Resolute, she oversaw a war fought with precision, each strike unfolding like the turn of a blade. The galaxy was watching. Human broadcasts echoed across neutral channels, a message disguised as transparency but meant as warning. Fleet status? She asked. 87% operational, Commander Run replied. His face looked older than it had a week ago. Vrak's defenses collapsing in Sector 9. Civilian vessels detected, unarmed transports. Engage them, Leora said without pause. Run hesitated. Admiral, those aren't warships. She turned her gaze on him, eyes cold as the void. Every ship fuels their war machine. Every escape carries soldiers or resources. There are no civilians in total war. He didn't argue further, but when the fleet's rail cannons fired, his hands clenched behind his back. Hours later, the aftermath played across tactical screens. A system gone dark, communications severed, life readings 0. Humanity's efficiency bordered on divine. In the War Council chamber aboard the Resolute, the senior captains gathered as holographic markers mapped the next stage of Operation Final Dawn. Kane's tone remained even, almost detached. We strike their core next, the Iridium Belt. Industrial systems, shipyards, logistics hubs. Destroy them, and the Dominion collapses. Captain Sato frowned. Intelligence reports heavy civilian concentrations on those worlds. Then they'll fall with their fleets, Kane said flatly. End it fast, or drag it for decades. Those are the choices. The room went silent. It wasn't defiance that stopped them from speaking. It was the realization that their admiral wasn't wavering, and neither could they. Far away, on Vrax Prime, Archon Xyrix watched the feed of his dying colonies. Human weapons had advanced beyond comprehension, projectiles guided by quantum AI, adaptive armor that healed under fire, warships that moved in silent formations like predators. The Dominion's fleets fractured under the precision of human wrath. How? One of his generals stammered. Their technology was inferior. It was, Xyrix snapped. Then they learned. They always learn. He stood before the Central Command Nexus, a vast, pulsing sphere alive with data. Activate the Sunpiercer array, he ordered. We will remind them that even gods can bleed. 3 days later, deep in the Iridium Belt, the Terran fleet emerged from slip space. The system's twin suns blazed over a cluster of shipyards orbiting a mineral-rich world. Thousands of Vrax vessels waited, jagged, scaled warships arrayed in defensive rings. Run exhaled slowly. Looks like they've been waiting for us. Then don't keep them waiting, Leora replied. The battle began with blinding ferocity. Terran dreadnoughts advanced, flanked by swarms of drones weaving through plasma storms. The void shook with kinetic thunder. Leora stood unmoving as the tactical holograms shifted rapidly, explosions, debris, progress. Then an alarm cut through the command deck. Massive energy spike from the primary sun. Source? Leora demanded. Unknown. Wait, it's artificial. The star itself convulsed. A spear of concentrated light erupted from its core, a beam so immense it split the dark like a god's wrath. The Sunpiercer fired. 2 Terran cruisers vanished instantly, reduced to vapor. The blast clipped the Resolute, tearing away half its dorsal armor. Alarm screamed. Damage report. Outer decks compromised. Containment fields holding. Kane gripped the rail. Target the emission core. Overload their array before it charges again. But Admiral, we don't even know if... Do it! Her tone left no room for doubt. The fleet shifted formation. Swarms of drones dove toward the array, sacrificing themselves to breach the shield network. Railguns fired in synchronized rhythm, tearing open the installation's armor. A final salvo struck the core. The Sunpiercer shuddered, then detonated. A ripple of light spread through the system, swallowing wreckage and stars alike. When the glare faded, the massive weapon was gone, replaced by a burning scar in the fabric of space. Silence filled the bridge. Run exhaled, voice low. If that thing had fired again, half the fleet would have been gone. Kane nodded once. Then it's good we didn't let it. He looked at her carefully. We could have captured it. Studied it. She didn't look away from the viewport. I'm not interested in trophies. Only conclusions. Hours later, the Terran fleet began mopping up survivors. Kane personally interrogated a captured Vrax commander aboard one of the wrecked dreadnoughts. The creature's scales were charred, its breathing ragged. You could have stopped. It rasped. You had peace. Peace doesn't survive in the hands of those who envy it, she replied. Then you'll kill us all? Leora's voice softened, not with pity, but finality. No. You'll kill yourselves trying to fight us. She turned away as the alien tried to speak again. Its last breath dissolved into static. Back aboard the Resolute, Run approached her with a datapad. New intel from recon units. The Vraks aren't as strong as we thought. Population collapse, internal famine, fragmenting command structure. These attacks, they're desperation, not conquest. Leora studied the data in silence. For a moment, her composure cracked, barely visible, like a hairline fracture in glass. They were dying, he pressed. This isn't vengeance anymore. It's extermination. She set the datapad down. They chose war. Maybe because they didn't know how to live without it. Her eyes lifted sharp again. Neither do we. Run hesitated, then left without another word. 3 systems later, the Dominion's command fleet attempted one final stand. Their trap was elaborate, feigned retreat hidden. Minefields, decoy signatures. But humanity adapted faster than the plan could unfold. AI-guided destroyers recalculated firing vectors mid-battle, flipping the trap on its creators. Kane's voice remained steady amid the chaos. Target their command ship. End this sector. Moments later, the enemy flagship split in half, flames spilling into the void. The last transmission intercepted from the Vrax channel was Xyrix's voice, distorted but clear. Do you call this victory? Kane didn't respond. She watched the wreckage drift, her expression unreadable. When the fires faded, the Resolute hung in silence among the ruins. Thousands of Vrax ships reduced to wreckage. Planets below still burning from orbital bombardments. Run stepped beside her again. We've destroyed 3 worlds. Their fleets are shattered. How many more before it's enough? She looked out the viewport, no emotion in her tone. Until they stop existing as a threat. He exhaled slowly. And what do we become when that's done? Safe, she said. Or alone? She didn't answer. Her gaze drifted to the horizon where a dying sun bled red into the void. That night she stood alone in her quarters, listening to the faint hum of the ship's engines. The faces of the lost flashed in her mind, her parents, New Horizon, the billions who had burned before this war. But beneath the rage, an echo of doubt whispered through her thoughts. Humanity had become unstoppable, unified, efficient, unrelenting. But if survival demanded extinction, what was left to protect? The comms chimed softly. Fleet Command's orders appeared. Proceed to Vrax Prime. Final phase authorized. Leora closed the file, her reflection cold in the glass. Final dawn, she murmured. Let's finish what they started. The stars beyond flickered like dying embers as the Resolute turned toward its next target, the heart of the Dominion. Somewhere in that darkness, Archon Xyrix watched humanity's advance and understood the truth far too late. He hadn't awakened an enemy. He had awakened extinction. Vrax Prime hung before the Terran fleet like a wounded titan, massive, radiant, dying. Its atmosphere burned with the glow of constant bombardment. Entire continents shimmered beneath storm clouds of ash. The once proud homeworld of the Dominion now looked like a fading ember in the dark. From the command deck of the Resolute, Admiral Leora Kane watched the storm unfold. Every strike, every explosion was a punctuation mark in a sentence humanity had been writing for centuries, one carved into the void in fire. Around her, the hum of machinery blended with the quiet discipline of her crew. No one spoke unless necessary. There was no need. Everyone knew what they were here to do. Orbital batteries 3 through 7 are in position, reported Commander Run. His voice carried no tone. All ground defenses neutralized. The surface is exposed. Leora's reply was simple. Begin final sequence. The order rippled through the fleet. Moments later, thousands of warheads descended through the atmosphere like a meteor storm. Vrax Prime's skies ignited. Ocean boiled. Mountains split. A shockwave spread across the planet's crust, the sound of civilization collapsing into silence. Run turned toward her. That's it. They're done. Leora didn't answer. She kept her eyes fixed on the burning world, her reflection dim against the viewport. Far below, deep within the last fortress of the Dominion, Archon Xyrix sat surrounded by the tremors of his dying world. The command spires had already fallen. His council lay dead. Only the low hum of power conduits remained, pulsing like a fading heartbeat. He looked up at the holographic projection flickering before him, the Terran fleet surrounding his planet like a noose of light. So, he whispered, voice brittle, this is how the galaxy ends, not with gods, but ghosts in metal shells. A communications officer, barely standing, turned to him. Archon, we can still transmit. Do it, Xyrix said. They should hear the death they've become. Back aboard the Resolute, a calm signal cut through the static. Transmission incoming. Origin, Vrax Prime. Run hesitated. It's him. Leora nodded. Put it through. The holographic image of Xyrix shimmered into view, battered, dying, yet proud. His black eyes locked onto hers. Admiral Kane, he rasped. I hope you're proud. You've become everything you feared. A machine that kills because it remembers how. Leora stood motionless. You declared this war. You slaughtered billions before we fired a shot. He coughed, blood glistening on his fangs. We attacked because we knew what was coming. We saw the pattern. Every species that threatened you vanished. We struck first because survival demands it. You taught us that. Run looked away. The bridge fell silent. Leora's expression didn't change. You could have chosen peace. Xyrix let out a low laugh, hollow, bitter. Peace with humanity is the silence before extinction. You call it survival. I call it fear given form. The transmission crackled as the fortress shook violently. Flames licked at the walls behind him. Enjoy your victory, Admiral. The galaxy will remember what you did here. She met his gaze. That's the point. The feed died. Minutes later, sensors confirmed what everyone already knew. Vrax Prime was gone. The last pulse of energy from its core faded into static. Kane's orders followed with machine precision. All ships stand down. Begin debris analysis. Confirm no remaining biosigns. When the report came back clean, the bridge crew let out a collective breath. It wasn't relief, just release. A century-old wound had been cauterized. Run approached her slowly. It's over. No, she said softly. It's finished. There's a difference. He studied her face. No triumph, no satisfaction. Just exhaustion buried under discipline. Billions, Admiral. A whole civilization. They had their choice. And so did we. Her eyes shifted to him, steady but distant. You think this makes us monsters? He hesitated. I think it makes us human. And that's what terrifies me. In the days that followed, the fleet drifted through the silent wreckage of the Dominion. Every ship they passed was cold and dead, every signal gone. Humanity's most decisive victory had left the galaxy quieter than ever before. Fleet Command transmitted congratulations from Earth. The Council hailed her as the savior of civilization. Streets filled with cheering crowds. Monuments were planned before the fires even died. Yet on the Resolute, there was no celebration. The crew spoke in whispers, moved slower, slept less. The silence of space had settled inside them. Leora reviewed report after report, lists of destroyed systems, resource tallies, post-war projections. None of it filled the growing void behind her eyes. Run finally confronted her on the observation deck. You haven't slept in 3 days. There's work to do. Admiral, he said quietly. There's nothing left to fight. She didn't answer. Her gaze remained on the horizon where Vrax Prime had been. You can't keep carrying it, he said. I'm not carrying it, she replied. I'm remembering it. A week later, the fleet prepared for return to Sol. Before departure, Leora recorded her final report to the Terran Council. The voice recorder blinked red as she began to speak. This is Admiral Leora Kane, commanding officer of the Resolute. Operation Final Dawn is complete. The Vrax Dominion has been neutralized. No survivors detected. She paused, her eyes unfocused, searching for words that didn't sound like commands. Humanity is secure. The message has been sent. The lesson delivered. Her hand lingered over the control before adding softer. But the cost of peace is beginning to look a lot like everything we once fought to protect. She stopped the recording and set it aside. The next morning, she stood alone on the bridge as the fleet aligned for the final jump. Outside, the debris of the Vrax homeworld drifted silently, fragments of cities, temples, and bones blending into a single gray cloud around the dead star. Leora turned to run. Transmit one final broadcast. Channel open to all frequencies. He hesitated. Message? She looked out at the ruins, her reflection blending with the stars. To any species who hears this, she began, her tone clear and cold. Remember what happened here. Remember that we asked for peace, and you gave us war. Remember Vrax Prime. Remember what humanity becomes when it's forced to defend itself. She paused, letting the silence carry the weight. Do not test us again. The message ended. When the fleet vanished into slip space, the Vrax system remained behind, a graveyard illuminated by the dying light of its star. Over centuries, it would become a warning etched into navigation maps across the galaxy. Sector 9X Alpha, restricted. Terran Zone. Do not enter. And though no one lived to tell their story, the memory of humanity's wrath traveled faster than any signal. The legend spread, not of conquest, but of consequence. Back on Earth, celebrations thundered across the cities of light. Statues of Leora Kane were erected, banners unfurled. Yet in her private quarters aboard the Resolute, the Admiral sat in silence, eyes fixed on the stars. Unmoving. She thought of her parents, of the burned colonies, of Xyrix's final words. In victory, she felt only emptiness, a victory so complete it erased the enemy and something within herself. Run's voice came through the calm softly. Course set for home, Admiral. Orders? She looked one last time at the empty void where a world used to be. Engage, she said quietly. Let's go home. As the ship entered the light of the jump corridor, she whispered to herself, words meant for no one but the stars. It's not peace we've made. It's fear. The vortex closed behind them, leaving only the endless, echoing silence of Vrax Prime.